Hey, how's it going? I'm Jason Manchester, and today we're going to be talking about probably one of my favorite types of photography, and that's long exposure photography. It's a technique where the camera shutter is left open for an extended period of time, allowing for the capture of motion, movement, in a still image. So obviously, you clicked on this video because you're interested in it as well, and I will give you a peek into what it is and how you can get started creating these really cool wall hangers. So let's dive in. But before we do, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the little notification bell, please. It will notify you when new videos are coming out, especially the ones that will be coming out where I'll be diving deeper into different types of long exposure photography that you can get creative with as well. I'll also leave links below to what I use to create these stunning images. Okay, so why use long exposure photography? Well, it's a great way to create a sense of movement and drama in your photos. For example, you can capture the silky flow of water in a waterfall, streaks of light in a busy street, or the star trails in a night sky, probably something you've seen a lot of. Or whatever that has movement and you want to freeze that movement in time and make it look dramatic. You can do that with long exposure photography. You can create unique and amazing images that stand out from the crowd. So what do you need to get started? Well, it's actually pretty simple, and you probably already have all this stuff. So number one, you need a camera, obviously, and you need to put that camera in manual. This allows you to adjust the settings and really dial it in to get the best results in long exposure shots. And number two, you also need a sturdy tripod to keep your camera stable during a long exposure, and preferably a remote shutter release to prevent camera shake when pressing the button. You will be surprised at just how easy it is to introduce camera shake when dealing with long exposure times. Another essential piece of gear that you may need, you probably will need, but you probably also carry it, is a neutral density filter, also known as an ND filter. These filters reduce the amount of light entering your camera, allowing you to use longer shutter speeds without overexposing the image. And remember that the longer the shutter speed, the more blurred the motion becomes in your image. ND filters are normally used depending on the time of day and when you're shooting rivers and waterfalls. You should always have an ND filter with you anyways. And don't be cheap with your ND filters. Cheap ones can cause weird color casting and really screw up your photos. So invest in a good one. Keep in mind, when it comes to choosing your subject for long exposure photography, you obviously want to look for elements that are in motion. I tend to go towards cityscapes where cars are moving. And the best time to shoot is during sunrise, sunset, and especially at night. Now, let's talk about the exposure triangle. I'm assuming that you already know this, but there are three elements that control the exposure in your image. That is shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Shutter speed is the length of time that the camera shutter is open. Aperture controls the amount of light that enters the camera through the lens, and ISO determines the camera sensitivity light. In long exposure photography, you want to set a longer shutter speed to capture the motion in your image. However, this also means you'll need to compensate by using a smaller aperture or lower ISO to avoid overexposing the image. There's a fine line where you want these settings to land depending on your surroundings in order to get the perfect outcome to your photo. Do not be in a hurry. Take your time, tweak the settings, take some test shots, and really dial it in. So again, use a sturdy tripod, a remote shutter release, so you can minimize camera shake, and experiment with the different shutter speeds to get the desired effect in your image. Don't be afraid to try different creative techniques, such as light painting or zooming during the exposure to add interest and variety to your images. Look, long exposure photography is a great way to capture the essence of motion and movement in a still image. Experimenting with techniques and drawing inspiration from others, you can create stunning images that stand out from the crowd. So go out, experiment, and see what unique and amazing creative images you can create with long exposure photography. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Tag me if you want to in any photos that you take, and I'll see you in the next video.